Hello, welcome to the Breck Buzz. The show is going to be telling you all about what's been happening for the last month in the town of Breckenridge Town Council. And I got two wonderful representatives who are going to help me out, filling you in on what's been going on. And it's been very active. But I have Erin Gigliello, councilwoman, and Mark Burke, councilman. I never quite get those things right, but thank you for joining me. It's great to have you both here. Mark's recovering from surgery, so we finally have him where he can actually have a coherent conversation, right?
It's good, it's good.
But it's been very busy. The council has been really focused, as has the community been, on the big topic, what we call the Comprehensive Parking and Transit Plan. And the council's been doing a lot of work, so I think we want to highlight a little bit what's been going on. And then let's chat a little bit about what are some of the key things that you're hearing out in the community since you guys have been reaching out so strongly into the town. So,
sure.
Erin, you want to kick it off?
Geez, where do I start? There's so much. Well, parking and transit has been an issue for some time. We hear it from our guests, we hear it from our residents and our locals that it's an issue, and it's really congestion is what it comes down to. People go into our little parking lots, they try to find a space, and then they go to another one, and it's almost like an Easter egg hunt. And so it's been challenging on our community. So what we've done is we've come up with a comprehensive plan that includes increased transit and a parking structure and a really good overall strategy of how to deal with this congestion and alleviate that for our residents and our guests. Now, the question for the council is to reach out and get some backing from our community and see if it's the right fit for our community, because we've studied it, we've done surveys about how it is an issue and how to solve it and what's the best way. But of course we want buy-in from our constituents, from our community. Mm-hmm. So we've reached out and we've had a few forums, to say the least. We've gone to the Wellington community, we've had a lot of coffee talks, we've had some forums, and we've really been gathering all this information. And we're really ready to implement the plan. Mm-hmm. However, the most important part to this plan is a sustainable funding source. And so that's where, the conversation has kind of risen to the next level, if you will, because we just don't have it in our current budget. We have about $13 million to play with, and that also includes anything that we would do to improve the rec department and our trail. Well, not necessarily our trails because that's open space, but other improvements around our community. So to spend that all in one area seems a little irresponsible. Plus, let's face it, the congestion is created by, somewhat our locals, but by a great amount our visitors who come to ski.
Yeah, particularly in the winter.
That's right. That's right.
So, Mark, why don't you take what have you been hearing from the community? What are some of the questions that the council tends to get as they go out there and do this outreach?
And if I could, Tim, could I just make a couple comments?
Sure.
I want to go back a little bit because this is my second term on council, and this has been something that the town has been hearing for literally decades. At least I know of, in the past 17 years, the town has conducted studies, surveys, traffic studies. We've had experts come in, we've had community surveys, and overwhelmingly for that many years it's been an issue. And it's one of these things where we just never had, I think, really the strength of the council behind it as a unified group. And so it is unanimous, but we know that it's a funding issue, but we wanted to make sure we went out, as Erin said, that we went to the community. So we've gone to the Hospitality and Lodging Association, the Restaurant Association, as Erin mentioned, forums, coffee talks. I mean, we've met with literally hundreds of our citizens, and overwhelmingly, everybody supports a plan, to do a comprehensive plan. Now, there's always pieces of a plan that some think it's good, some think it's bad. We've been talking about the parking structure on F lot. In that case, every study that we've had done has identified that as a space to be. Although we can use anecdotal things, in our community that says, well, it's going to add to the congestion. You've got to trust sometimes the experts, especially when you've had 3 different studies done and everybody seems to think that's the place to put it. Providing you do some things such as roundabouts. We want to do a walkover pedestrian bridge so it gets the congestion off of Park Avenue, which takes up a lot of traffic. So what I think I've been hearing, and we probably have all heard different things from the community, is that people absolutely support us owning this. This is a Breckenridge town issue. and they want us to take responsibility. It's one thing to just keep complaining about something. They want our council to respond. What I think is up still for discussion is the look. What is this F-lot garage going to look like? What size is it? People want to make sure the aesthetics, that it looks like Breckenridge. It would be cheaper if we were to obviously build it on one flat surface, but that's not Breckenridge. We don't want a 4 or 5 story parking garage downtown. This, because of the topography of the land, it allows us to go, I think, 2 stories or 2.5 stories down and only 1 story up. So that we've heard. We are hearing overwhelmingly that we have to increase the consistency, increase the timing of our transit. Transit seems to be really kind of rising to the top. So we need to do transit. Employee parking. People are employees that work in the heart of our town, and for all businesses, whether it's mine or Beaver Run or the ski area, people want to have close in-town parking for employees. So we've started addressing that. So it really is a comprehensive plan that, quite frankly, as one councilman, and I think the entire council believes, this is a decision that the town has got to make, and it is a Breckenridge decision. And the time to act is now. It's going to be 2.5 to 3 years before anything's even really completely implemented, once we decide where this revenue source is going to come. But again, I think overall we're hearing very positive things. People are thrilled that we're involved in the community the way we are. And I want all the community to know that we continue to involve the community. We're having another one, in fact, this week, another coffee talk. But more importantly, once we get to the point of finding out where the sustainable revenue source is going to come from, at that point, the community is going to be even more intimately involved in the design and the look through the planning process. We want our community to have, what is this garage going to look like? What is the increased transit going to look like? Where are the routes going to be? How often are they? Instead of 30 minutes, is it every 20 minutes? Is it every 15 minutes? But none of that can happen unless we have a sustainable revenue source. And I just want to throw out that there have been some people, in the ski area in particular, about, let's just focus on the garage. But we can't just focus on the garage. The job of any leadership team is to see into the future the best way you can. We know that for 20 years it's been a problem. We know parking and congestion is going to continue to be a problem. We hope it will be. That's a good problem to have. That's the reason for a sustainable revenue source. It's not just about the structure at this point and the transit at this point, but 5 years out, long after I'm off council, Erin, maybe you the mayor then. But future councils need to have a revenue source that they can make decisions on an ongoing basis that are right for our community. And that decision belongs in our community.
Well, and to add on to that, there has been talk about Vail offering, maybe putting a garage on the gondola lot. But to your point too, a beautiful example is in Vail, where there is a tax that pays for parking and transit. They have 10-minute, 4-minute, maybe 15-minute might be the longest transit service, where people can really rely on it. And they know if they're going to be at this bus stop, in 5 minutes a bus will come. And that's beautiful. That's a great reason for people to use transit. It's so easy. And the thing about the town making the decisions for the transit and for the garage and for parking is that the council has the town's best interest at heart. That's how we make decisions. What's the best decision for the town, right? Mm-hmm. And if we put it in the hands of Vail Resorts, or even in a partnership with Vail Resorts for this one garage, I get concerned about, down the line, as Mark says, are they really going to have the town's best interest at heart? Because they're a business, and good on them. That's what keeps them going. But it's never going to be the residents of the town of Breckenridge that's on the forefront of their decision making.
Right. Let's dig a little bit deeper into
Sure.
what's going to happen kind of as the next step related to this ongoing revenue stream. You've hinted at it that we need one. We haven't talked about a dollar amount, so throw that out a little bit.
Okay.
Basically the estimate of where we're going. But what is it that the citizens will have an opportunity to act on that will ensure that?
Sure. So at this most recent council meeting, which when this was taped, it was last night, we talked about a resolution that we will vote on during the second council meeting of August. And with a resolution, we don't have a first ordinance reading and a second ordinance reading. There's just one. And the resolution, we had a few different options. We could have gone for a for-profit admissions tax, which is what we've thrown around in the past a little bit. But then the ski area would be, or the people who use the ski area would be taxed for the admissions. But also if in a restaurant, if a restaurant had a band that night, or a club had a band that night, or so whatever admission they would charge would also have the tax on it, as well as the movie theater or sleigh ride, that sort of thing. And actually Mark was recused for this conversation because of course he owns Burke and Riley's. So that was one of the options that we were throwing around. Another option was a ski area admissions tax, which means that anybody who pays for an activity, or the admission to any activity on the ski area, that would be taxed. So you would have the lift tickets, you would have the slide and the bungee things and the zip line,
all the summer activities.
All those summer activities. So there was that option. And then of course there was also just the lift ticket tax, which would be primarily a tax for the users during the winter. We, in the end, decided to go the route of an admissions tax, a ski area admissions tax, which means that people who for everybody who uses an activity, that activity is taxed. Now, it gets a little interesting when we start talking about pass holders, because when somebody buys a pass, it can be to Breckenridge, it can be to Breckenridge and Keystone and A-Basin, or it could be to all the Vail resorts. Now, they won't be paying that percentage on the whole pass. Right. It'll be fractional. Only when you go to Breckenridge will that fraction of your pass be taxed. And I think that's really important because people are pulling out bigger numbers on the entire pass, but that's not how it works. So it's actually a much smaller amount than I think people initially realize. Would you like me to talk about the numbers of the percentage?
Can I just throw something in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Mark.
I was going to say that, Erin brings up a good point, and there's been, obviously everybody knows in our community there's this, we've been trying to negotiate with Vail, that it was our intention to have some type of voluntary partnership. And of course they keep focusing on the garage only, and we know as a council that's just not the right decision for our community. It's got to be a comprehensive plan. Erin is absolutely right that in fact right now, if you are a season pass holder, you buy an Epic Pass and you use it in Breckenridge, the town of Breckenridge gets 0. If you use that same season pass in the town of Vail gets 4% of that percentage of that day. So it's currently existing in Vail the same way, and the reason why I point that out again is because Vail Resorts has been sharing in the community that they have to pass it on and it's going to stop visitors from coming here. The reality is Vail currently is doing it. The reality is that's Vail's choice. Right now in the town of Vail, they get 4% from it. And by the way, it was as recent as 1992 that ordinance went in. I know I've heard in the community that people are being told it was 66. It was 2% in 66 and 92 by ordinance. It was done by the town of Vail. But the reality is there is no tax line at the town of Vail. So Vail Resorts has made the conscious decision not to pass it on to the consumer or absorb it into the price of that lift ticket. They have that right here as well in Breckenridge. So we are a council that would be willing to allow them to do the same process they do in Vail for our tax. So they do not have to pass on the ticket holder at all, very similar they don't to Vail.
And that's such a great question too. Overall, why in Vail does Vail Resorts value that community and the transit and the parking of that community to invest in it? And why not here?
Yeah, and the interesting thing, that investment results in a very robust, heavily used system where they don't have the kind of congestion issues, maybe on I-70, but at least in their internal street network that Breckenridge does.
That's correct.
Which is a wise investment.
And Tim, and that's why it's a comprehensive plan.
Right.
By building a parking structure is not the answer. It is part of the answer, but increased transit. I mean, it is easy when you get to Vail. You know, and as a Breckenridge resident, I could have chosen to live in Vail. We do not want to be like Vail. You know, I keep hearing that, you know, why should we get it just because Vail? No, but it's a great example of what they've been able to do with those resources to get the congestion off the roads if you have more consistent and more frequent transit, if you have better parking where customers and guests know where to go, if they can go to a structure rather than, as Erin referred to earlier, the circling effect. Right now in Breckenridge, we have eclectic parking that I call all over town. We as locals do it. When we're going out for dinner, Tracy and I, we circle kind of looking where we can go. If there's a structure you can go to, especially people from out of town, I mean, it's going to benefit our guests. I mean, It really is. And
well, one of the things that I think has confused some folks is lately, not as a part of a dollar amount offer, the ski area did talk about participating in a parking structure. A smaller parking structure, I should say. But then they threw out the south gondola lot.
Right.
And people keep asking, well, isn't there already a parking structure there? How does that work? Do we know?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm telling you firsthand, as the person with John Warner, who on behalf of our council have been negotiating heavily. It's been a discussion for years, even prior to me being the mayor pro tem. But literally for months now, we've been negotiating with Vail. I can tell you, without question, there has never been a specific offer ever made. As recent as last night's council meeting, it seemed to me to be a little staged because it was a statement by Vail that they want to contribute a significant majority of a parking structure. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, we've asked specifically, what is the number? What is the percentage? So that's the first and foremost. I think our community needs to know that we have never, in fact, we are the only ones that put something in writing as an offer. And I don't even believe we got a response to that offer. I don't even think we got anything in writing as a response. So they're focused on the garage, and now they're throwing out in the community the gondola. They'll build it on their property, their lot. Now it doesn't have to be on left lot. What our community needs to know is there's already a master plan for those two south and north gondola lots. And as soon as Vail Resorts either sells or they in fact develop those, they are already responsible to replace every one of those parking spaces. I think it's 1,500.
That's correct.
So 1,500 parking spaces they're already committed to doing. They have to as part of their master plan. As a citizen of this town, that structure is going to be starting from ground level, not going down. Can you picture a 5 or 6 story parking garage there? And then they want to add another 500 spaces? I think in the master plan it's 3 or 4 stories already.
3 stories, I think.
3 stories. So it would have to, you add another 500 spaces before or 5 stories. People are worried about that. That's one of the other benefits of the F lot, that we can go down below so it really looks like Breckenridge. But the reality is they're already responsible to do that. That's not an offer. Right now, the town, as part of that agreement, I think it was part of that master plan, we give 500 spaces.
We give them 500
Right,
spaces.
we give them 500 spaces on Airport Road on our Block 11. There have been nearly 30 times this year they have gone over those 500 spaces. We've allowed it. We've allowed them to park there, some days 2,000. We have never charged them for that additional parking. So keep in mind, when you hear that offer from Vail, immediately, if they build an additional 500 spaces that they're saying they're doing for the town, that is going to be an additional 500 spaces that they gain, that they are not having to work with the town of Breckenridge on that issue. But we have been very generous, I think. You know, have we ever charged them, Tim, for anything over their 500?
No.
Ever. And so there's more to the story. And, you know, I just ask our community, as Erin said, we are a group of 7 council people, and we don't often always agree on issues. Truly, we've had votes that are 5-2, 4-3. We are 2-1, all on the same page on this. We know it's a critical issue. It's the first time any council has honestly grabbed hold of it and said, we're going to own this issue and we're going to move forward. And as Erin said, we have nothing to personally gain. When Vail Resorts, and I'm a businessman, they are a for-profit and they're responsible to Wall Street. I get that. So when they're making decisions, you just got to keep in the back of your mind that their goals are very different than ours are as a council. we all have different constituencies as a council, but every one of us sees the value of it, and we're going to make the decision that we believe is right for our town, including what that garage looks like, what the transit looks like, and future. I mean, if there's a sustainable revenue source, how do we know that 5 years down the road that we don't need to deck the ice rink because there's more employees in this town that need parking, or the courthouse lot if we could work out a deal with the county? You know, it would give us so many more options to be able to look at these issues as they arise.
Yeah. Erin, I want to jump a little bit to another component of the plan that the council just really approved, which is the baby steps, I guess I could call it, because until the big plan really gets going, it may not work completely right. But the council was very concerned about the balance between employee parking as a general category and where is the best place for that, but also to try to eliminate some of the competition between who is going for those parking spaces, i.e. in particular skiers. Where the workers are many times having to go hunt for parking because they can't find one, even in lots where we would like to have them. So the council did some things, hopefully, to start moving that needle to kind of encourage people off of Main Street so that the employees don't park there, but visitors do, or guests, and then get them some places where it might be more appropriate.
Well, that's right. And going back to the comprehensive plan, which again, this is something that we can do, but Vail Resorts would not be able to do, because they don't have the power to do it, quite frankly, but is to organize where people park in consideration of why they want to park there. So for instance, we have Main Street, right? The people who are parking on Main Street are employees, they are skiers, they are across the board, all kinds right now. Strategically, it makes sense for the people who park on Main Street to be going to the restaurants and retail stores that are located there. Strategically, it makes sense for the employees to park in these little boutique, for some reason that's what's in my head, for these little parking areas around town, because it's easier for the employees to find them. Plus, if they have employee passes to these specific little boutique parking areas around town, they know where to find them. They can locate them. They can find a spot and be on their way. Ideally, we would have a structure for the skiers to park. So everybody has their own little place around town. And that's how, that's all part of the plan, the long-term goal. And this plan has also been provided by the task force, who meets regularly, and they work so hard on this, and they have come up with some really, really great ideas. So back to your question of what we've decided so far. So we have the satellite lot north of town, and that's free skier parking. That's free parking. That will remain free parking. And then we have the ice rink on the south side of town. Now, what we have decided as of the last council meeting is that for the ice rink lot, for instance, you can get an employee pass now for $50 a year if you live outside of town and live on the south side of town. So if you are, for instance, Blue River, then you park there. And then if you live from the south side of town, the north side of town, you would park on the satellite light. So see where I'm getting at, though. The employees are not crossing the sides of town. Yeah. But also what we've decided to to be a bit of a deterrent. I mean, obviously people can still park, anybody can still park there, but we've added a little bit of a price. So it's $5 per day in the ice rink lot and $1 per hour there now, and $15 on the weekends.
If you don't have a pass.
If you don't have a pass. And it's a $15 overnight as well. Now the reason for this is because a lot of people use the ice rink lot, which is pretty prime parking, for overnight parking. And that includes some of the lodging properties, or even just some residents if they have people staying in town. Now we really want to encourage people, because it is still prime parking, to park those folks who are visiting in the satellite lot, because that's free. Another concern that came up at the last council meeting is that currently a lot of employees who are not of Main Street Station have been parking in the Main Street Station underground parking. They will soon be displaced, and we're not sure where they're going to go. But this allows an option at the ice rink for them to go. Now, I know that this has been a concern for people who have traditionally been parking at the ice rink and skiing, which they still can. It's just, it's $5 a day or $15 in the weekends. But we're not sure what's going to happen with the employees. So we're monitoring this. This is what we've done right now, but we're taking a look at it.
So it's the first steps to see if you can start modifying a little
Exactly.
bit of the behaviors.
That's right.
And what we've also done with the, and I know I'm going to confuse these two, with the Wellington lot and the East Sawmill lot, we have dedicated, I'm going to take a stab, the East Sawmill lot as employee parking. All employee parking. And again, you can buy a pass and you'll know where you're going to park, and you won't be competing with skiers anymore. And then we've designated the Wellington for now as all skier parking.
Or paid parking.
Or paid parking,
Right.
paid parking.
Yes.
So if you're an employee, you can pay and ski there. So we've done that.
So
Yeah.
the idea being that still want employees to be fairly close to the core, hopefully get them off of Main Street,
That's right.
give them preference in certain lots,
Sure.
and still have a balance between the skiers that are competing with some of those, which are also local sometimes, and the overnight parking, and trying to get all those to try to work a little bit more in coordination.
Right. And the key to this too, which will be an ongoing theme as we move forward with our parking structure, not parking structure, but our parking plan. Obviously, I have structure on the brain.
It would relieve these problems.
Right, which would, yes, it would. But anybody who has an employee pass can park in their designated place, in their designated parking lot.
As if they're working.
As if they're working, but they can go skiing, which is what's happening right now. But that's still going to happen. We're not going to check to see if people are skiing or
it's kind of a
working.
culture.
But if you have the employee pass, and something that's really important before we move on from the tax entirely is that if this tax does not pass, we won't have a funding source. So we won't be able to do a lot of these things that we're talking about. And I think that really needs to be clear, because we've had votes before, we've had ballot questions before that didn't pass, but we figured out a little way. I don't see how that's possible in this scenario.
There isn't the revenue stream to do it.
There's no, we can't.
Okay. Mark, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, some of the things that we're clear on, and what's really important for our community is that we've listened to the community. This task force has been working really
Fantastic. Yeah,
complimentary
it's been
in this town. It was made up of a wide range of people in this community. They made suggestions to the county, to the council. The citizens have made suggestions. So right now, we've also agreed no skier parking at all on Main Street. We call customer parking. Remember, we're all customers too. As when we go out to
Sometimes.
dinner,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep.
So that's going to be reserved. Clack Placer lot is going to be an employee-only designated lot. No more skier parking. But again, having listened to the community, we heard from families that said they dropped their kids off at the Breck Elementary.
Right.
So there will be 30-minute spaces for those people. They will be allowed to park there for 30 minutes. Then you have the French Street lot, no more skier parking. So, very shortly, people are going to understand that our locals and our workforce is really important too. It's not just about our guest. And these are the things that we've been struggling with. And as Erin mentioned, that's one of the reasons why we need the sustainable revenue source, because quite frankly, and if I were Vail, I'd be concerned about the things we've just mentioned. No more skier parking on Main Street, no more skier parking, in Clack Plaza, no more skier parking on French, not in East Sawmill. Those are being dedicated to our employees. And their employees, by the way.
Right.
Some of their employees are parking there. So it truly is a comprehensive plan. We're walking before we run. We need to know where the revenue is to put the big steps in that are going to really make a big difference. But as recent as last night, Chief Shannon Haynes, who has done a phenomenal job heading this task force and really studying this to death, she is listening. I mean, we started off at the ice rink at $15, and citizens said, no, that's too much. Let's go to the $5 per day. Shannon reassured us last night that that's one of those things that she can keep an eye on. As the passes are sold, if it's not full, we can, loosen up a little bit. If it's still, it was a shock to me, 130 on average people park there overnight. 100, the people can't even get to the ice rink. It's becoming an issue. So It's exciting to me. I am so excited about, I only have 2.5 years left on this council, and I am so excited to finally seeing us make decisions and putting it to work. And I just really am hopeful that our community comes and backs this plan. And it's not going to be perfect. We're not all going to get everything we like. At the end of the day, the council's job is to make those decisions based upon everything we've heard and we've learned and we've studied, and based upon the revenue stream. So.
Let me hit one other topic, because we obviously have covered this one pretty well. You guys are used to this out there in the public all the time.
That's right.
One of the questions always comes up, well, what about paid parking, and why can't that pay for everything?
Oh, it just won't. We've done that. Those studies. You can add paid parking on Main Street all you want in every lot, and it's still not enough to pay. Transit alone. We have what I would say probably is C to C minus level service. Now, other council people think we're a D. Because it's just not frequent enough for people, and we don't have enough routes. I mean, there's a group in the Wellington neighborhood that wants us to put in a turnaround and another bus route right now to the tune of $180,000 to $200,000. Those are the kind of decisions that will be made easier if we had a funding source for these kind of issues. But the bottom line is that, transit alone, I think, Tim, to go to just probably a B would be like another $2 million. We already currently spend $2.5 million. The town does. Mm-hmm. Probably would be another $2 million,
including buying buses.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And then if we wanted the A level service, some of the estimates we saw, including buying buses, would be $6 million a year, folks. A year. We're not going to probably get to the point of an A level service, quite frankly. I mean, this tax is not going to generate that. Then you add a parking structure, even a smaller parking structure on F lot that we've talked about. The debt service alone is going to be on a smaller structure, minimum $2.5 million. For an ideal structure would be $3.5 million just for the debt service, and that's a 30-year debt. So you start adding that with the transit, it's very clear to us that we need a sustainable revenue source, and that's not going away. And that's, as we talked about, 5 years down the road, we're probably going to see other needs that we have in parking and transit. And what's exciting about this is that right now our hands have been kind of held. I mean, we have a group, as I said, in Wellington that wants this right now. We have got to wait till October for the budget retreat, first of all, because it's not been budgeted. But November election, whichever way that turns out, is going to make our decisions much more clear to make those kind of good decisions for our community.
Well, and another point to that is, if we were to put metered parking up and down Main Street currently, then we have to take a look at where these groups start to park. And if the employees and our workforce is competing with the guest, and so the guests are still parking, in these boutique parking areas,
if they can find
parking lots. If they can find them, they're paying for parking there. Employees, which in the workforce, are currently parking on Main Street. If we don't give them a place to go, they'll continue, and then metered parking just becomes an employee tax, which isn't fair. I mean, it's not
right.
It's not like people are making a lot of money here, and then we're going to tax them to park as well. It's just so unfair. Mm-hmm. And so with a structure, and obviously better transit, we give the guests a place to park, the employees move over to the little lots, and then we have Main Street for what it's supposed to be for, which is retail and restaurants. But otherwise, it becomes an employee tax, and that's just not fair.
It's a great chess game.
Yeah.
All the pieces have to come together and work, right?
Tim, you said, what are we hearing out there in the community? There's another example where the council's listening. The task force was very clearly, and by the way, I support it, that if we had parking on Main Street, it would control it much better. But the reality is, we heard loud and clear from our citizens, they're not ready for that yet. We're not really sure that's Breckenridge yet. So we listened, and so that's not a priority right now for us. It's not being just pushed aside. I mean, this task force spent too much time and energy to just do that to them, and we know for a fact that would control parking in a much better way. But the reality is, we have to be able to, when we displace our employees, we better have answers for them where they're going to park. If all of a sudden we say they're going to have to pay to park on Main Street and all those kind of things. So again, it's a total plan. And you're right, Tim, and it has been thrown out, and I think some people from Vail have actually thrown that out. Why don't we just pay parking, and that will take care of this issue? But as Erin said, that's just not fair to our locals and our community.
And doesn't generate doesn't generate that kind of money.
No.
Right.
Well, great overview. Thank you very much for that. I think it's obviously you guys have been out there working hard on knowing the plan and hearing what's been going on. But let's go on to a couple other things just to give the folks a little bit of update what else we've been working on. There's going to be a second ballot question on the ballot. Right. A very important one, obviously, for the town of Breckenridge and all of our locals who are looking to live in Breckenridge someday. It's called the Renewal of 5A. What's that all about?
That's right. Let me read it to you.
Okay.
So without raising any additional taxes, shall the existing Summit Combined Housing Authority levy be extended to improve the availability of rental and owner-occupied workforce and affordable housing through an ongoing extension of the existing 1/8 of 1%, that's 0.125% sales tax and use tax commencing January 1st of 2017 and continuing thereafter as voter-approved revenue change under Article X. So essentially we're just continuing.
That sounds like a lot of legalese.
That's right, it does. But essentially we're just continuing on what we're doing.
Right.
And that money obviously goes to affordable housing, which we've also researched and we need.
Right. And we should mention it's not our ballot initiative. It's the
No.
county. It's a countywide.
Countywide.
But our council is 100% in support of it. It does not increase taxes at all. It just continues what's currently there, but it will continue it so that it's long term.
Right.
There won't be a sunset.
Yeah.
And again, they're doing it a year earlier than they needed to do it. But I think the county wanted, again, as we're talking planning, they want to be able to count on that. If not, they'd have to figure out some other things. So,
particularly since even we have projects on the drawing board, right?
we've got some big ones.
Which we'll talk about here in just a second.
So it is a county ballot initiative. Our council unanimously supported it, supported the wording of it, that it's a continuation.
And unless you're living under a rock, it's a real problem here.
Real problem.
Yeah.
And then there's an example of taxpayer dollars at work.
Yeah.
I guess you'll be talking about that.
Resulting in real projects.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Mark, I'm going to let you kick off.
Yep.
Obviously, the town has been very active in affordable housing. We've done both public-private partnerships, but we've also done some of our own projects with this money that's come from the original 5A. But we have a huge demand out there for long-term rental housing that just kind of creeped up on the town. And because of that, the town has been focused on a couple of important projects. Pinewood 2 under construction, Denison Placer 450. What are those all about?
Yeah, Pinewood 2 is exciting, and it was a first experience for us in a different type of financing as well. But I think is it 42 units? 42 units of rental, which is what the big need is right now in Breckenridge in particular. That's already underway. People are seeing it. That's exciting, and that is going to be a 60% AMI. So 60% of the median income.
There you go. I was going to ask you.
Right. Yeah. Of the median income, which is really that's the group that we need to service. I mean those are quite frankly the employees at all the restaurants, the ski area, Beaver Run. Those are the employees that need the housing. That's already happening, and we did that through a housing initiative, a tax credit. And I think it was 3%. Tax credit, bonding, or whatever. And what that does, it allows private equity financing to come into a project. Talk about creative. By doing that, we were able to get $3.5 million from an outside investor to put into this project. It saved us money. Denison Placer, which for those who are not aware, it's on Block 11, which is close to Colorado Mountain College. There are two projects kind of working hand in hand there. One, we're trying to do a joint effort with Colorado Mountain College on a piece of their land, but we want to partner with them, and that would be more of an apartment style, 35 units, I believe, and that would be, maybe, some of their students or whatever. But that's we're kind of working on. We're waiting to hear from CMC. We have a project that we're working on, which is 65 townhome style units right adjacent to that. So if you're at CMC and you're coming into town, we've already done the infrastructure. We're planning it so that it fits whatever we build in the continuation. Those are going to be 2-bedroom, I believe all 2-bedroom,
2 to 3.
2 to 3-bedroom townhome style. Really exciting, and that's 65 of those units. What's exciting about that? There's a new program through the Housing Authority that's called 9%, and I'm going to try to make it easy. Basically, what it allows us to do is to go out again and get outside private equity financing to come into our project, if we keep the AMI, the median income of those that are going to live there, on average of 40%. So we're looking at 30, 40, and 50%, averaging out at 40%. That is really exciting. I mean, those are the people that really, right now, can't even afford to live in this town. But what the real excitement is, if we can get that, and there's only 2 times a year, I believe we can apply, it's every 6 months. If we get that, we may be able to get financing from outside sources, financing we don't repay, by the way, up to 90% of the construction cost, from what I understand. I mean, think about how creative this town has become, in these kind of projects. Then we've got the Colorado 450 project, which for the community, that's where the current recycling is for bottles and cans and all that. If they've noticed, the old ambulance station has been moved out, and their, Public Works, we partnered with the county, which we've had a great relationship. They're utilizing, we have a long-term lease for their Public Works, on our Public Works. Talk about partnering. And then they're going to be building a brand new recycling center on our property. Again, another long-term lease on Corn Valley Road over by the McCain property, which is freeing up all this area for another project. And I believe it's 26 2-bedroom apartments. And it's going to be in 2 buildings. And they're actually what they call stacked, because that way you'll have to be able to maintain the view corridor for people and put solar on the building. So it's really exciting. And we're doing all this because there's a real need and everyone's going to benefit. And, I've heard the comments made when we talk about our parking. Housing is as critical as parking is. And I hear the comment about, the town's got $60 million. These are the types of things we're doing. We don't have $60 million just to throw after parking. We just mentioned housing. We've got a water plant going, but that's $30 million. So our resources, and Erin referred to that, we've got $13 million of what we call unrestricted funds that we can put into play into the parking situation. But that also is for other things, like we added, $400,000 more this year on roads because they were in rough shape after the winter. The rec center, the ice rink, there's people who want to have a roof over it. So folks, I can tell you, we are in good fiscal shape, but there's a purpose to those dollars. It's not like there's $60 million sitting in someone's piggy bank that we could just throw after, let's build a parking structure. We could do that if we don't want housing. If we don't have a redundant water plant, which is, quite frankly, take a look at what just happened with the EPA leakage. Think about if that's not a reason why we ought to have a redundant water plant in this town. Those things can happen here. We could do that if we don't want to have childcare. We could do that if we don't want to support our roads and infrastructure in our parks. So yeah, we aren't fiscally sound. I don't apologize for that. We've been really managing our resources well. We have invested in this community like I've never seen. Thank God for previous councils. They were big thinkers and also held reserves. We were able to speed up the arts district and get that done in 3 years versus 10, which was the original plan. Probably was even greater than that. So there's a lot of exciting things happening, but we are trying to manage a lot of these critical issues. Housing is so important, as is the parking and transit. But it is an exciting time, and we're really, this council, when I first got on council, it was all housing that people could, it was ownership. And the real need right now is apartment rentals, and we're addressing it head on. So it's exciting.
So the rental, you probably hear about it more than anything as a connection with the business community.
That's
about
right,
nobody
yeah.
can find anything. It's just
Right,
with
right.
The new VRBOs, Airbnbs, all those things seem to be taking away
Oh,
from
and it's just working all against us, which is just, it's unfortunate because, talk to any business owner trying to hold on to a really good workforce is tough. And you don't know. I mean, we'd like to recruit from outside the town, but there isn't a place for anybody to live, which is, it's quite important. And businesses just keep on growing, which is, it's a great problem to have. It's great that Vail Resorts is expanding. It's great that we have other larger businesses that are expanding, but we really have to be responsible, and we can't invite these people into our community and then not have a place for them to live.
Or they're going to commute over the pass, which isn't great either.
Right.
And directly, with these AMIs that we're using for these rentals, it will be the larger companies' employees. It will be Vail Resort employees that will absolutely benefit from this apartment style living. They're going to love it because the plans are beautiful. It's going to be, Grand Vacations employees. I mean, I'm thinking about the big employers that give back, and because, Vail Resorts is also very important to our community, as is Grand Vacations. But they're big employers, and so with that comes some responsibility. And Grand Vacations certainly has stepped up in the things that they've done. But this housing is going to benefit all of us.
Right.
Erin, you struggled, I think, getting a place to live, didn't you, at one point?
So,
right?
I mean,
There's a long waiting list out of Wellington.
There is a long waiting list, and unfortunately, this is going to provide a great dent, but we still need to do more. But it's amazing what the town has been doing, and with LIHTC and being savvy with funding, and it's pretty great. It's a great time to be a part of the town.
Well, let's wrap up with kind of a good news report. The council periodically gets reports from different departments, and one of our biggest is recreation, if not the biggest.
Yes.
And they had some real highlights of how the past year went for them.
And I think the most important part is that the total revenue for the recreation department in 2014 was $2,922,723, which is the highest revenues in the history of the department, which is excellent. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there were other, pretty great statistics too. I mean, they're just doing great, and it's. Obviously they expanded with the skate park, and we have the turf field and things like that. But yeah, and just so viewers know too, the subsidy for 2014 was $1,470,116, with a cost recovery of 67%.
And explain what that means for those folks.
Let's see. So that means that we gave them $1 million or 1.4
from other sources.
Mm-hmm. Right. And essentially they were able to make back 67%
of it. So the fees do not cover
what
we offer.
That's correct. It doesn't. But it really is a great amenity for the community.
And it was never intended to either.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's an amenity for the community to give back to the community, which is important too, because we get this funding from the community. So it's great to circulate it back into it.
Right. So, and that includes the operations of Nordic Ice, Rec Center, and programs, right?
That's right. And I think, Tim, it's a good point. They did bring in over $2 million, but our community is understanding that's not cash in the bank. We, in addition to that, we had to put another $1.5 million. But they do great things, and those are the things that, because of the good fiscal management in this town, that we're able to do. But you're right, and the golf course is self-funded. That's an enterprise fund which self-funds themselves, which is really exciting. The debt's been paid off of the golf course, so in fact, the golf course now is going to have to go through a lot of construction with the irrigation system. The good news is they have the money, so it's exciting. There's a lot of wants out there. I think we saw a $6 to $10 million request for the rec center.
Yep.
The ice rink, $1 million to $3 million, depending on what people want. Riverwalk Center, probably $4 to $5 million, if not more. So, and by the way, those are the decisions we have to make with that $13 million. Mm-hmm. That's what we have to make those decisions, and that's if we decide to use the $13 million all in 1 year. It's not going to happen. So we have to make the tough choices. Once again, I think, it's ironic, our budget retreat is in October. Mm-hmm. The ballot initiative for the parking and transit and what I call congestion plan is going to be in November. I think, quite frankly, as one council person, those decisions are going to be made much easier if that November ballot issue passes. Because either way, we're going to have to address some congestion. We've got issues. But it makes it a little bit easier if you have a sustainable revenue source for that, which allows us to take that $13 million and all of a sudden, okay, let's look at putting the roof over the ice rink, and let's look at, adding space at the rec center for new programming. And there are things that we've made decisions to do anyways. We're putting an elevator and a new elevator in that we know we need at the rec center. But those are the things that pop up. Mm-hmm. They just pop up. We usually spend $800,000 on roads. We're spending $1.2 million. We didn't expect to have that kind of destruction over the winter. So you need to have those funds available.
Right. Great. Did I miss anything that you want to cover real quick before we wrap up this episode of The Buzz?
I could talk about this
parking and transit the rest of the day.
These initiatives forever, but no, I think I think that'll do.
Okay, Mark,
Yeah.
anything?
No, it's been a good summer, and
Great.
Yeah.
Well, so let's remind people again, obviously the council meets every other Tuesday, the
That's right.
second and the fourth Tuesday of the month. Next meeting will be the resolution that establishes the ballot question, so certainly an important meeting. And we have our website always available for folks to check out. We have a lot of information about the parking and transit
right.
plan on there. We also will have continuation of coffee talks, other meetings like that. Public always invited. And the council always welcomes you, whether it's the post office, the grocery store, or wherever, right?
yeah, my wife won't shop with me anymore at City Market because a 5-minute visit turns into a half hour.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got some big events coming up. Obviously, the Pro Cycling Challenge next week.
right.
Our Festival of Arts is kicking off tomorrow, as a matter of
International
fact. So a
Festival,
lot
yeah.
of
And
exciting
blue
stuff.
trees.
Blue
Check out
that's
the
right.
blue trees around the community. I just came from painting the trees blue.
Did you really?
I did, and it
Good.
washes off. So it's
Not for your
environmentally.
toes. Your toes still have it on. No, just
Right,
kidding.
that's true. That's true. But it's all about awareness of the deforestation that's going on
Right,
around.
and it's environmentally
the world.
safe,
Yes.
environmental.
We
all
will
that.
not be seeing extra bluebirds or
It's
blue
a big
insects
deal.
or anything
It's a,
like
I mean,
that.
it's a
Really
big
big.
art exhibit. It's a big
Yeah.
deal.
There's going to be
It's-
stuff all over town going on.
That's right.
Riverwalk, the Arts District,
Yeah.
you name it. There's going to be something happening all for the next week.
And bear with us because the crowds are going to be busy. Parking is going to be an issue.
True.
Transit's going to be an issue. So, but it's exciting. I mean, it's good problems to have, I guess, right?
That's
It's
right.
kind of the last busy part of the summer before everybody heads back to school. So,
Yeah.
well, I want to thank Mark and Erin for joining
Thank
me
you.
and filling you all in. And we'll be back again next month for the next version of Breck Buzz.
Clear.
Thanks.
We didn't announce your retirement. I didn't know if you were going to.
That's okay.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't know if you were going to do that. I didn't want to just say it because if you didn't want to,
Right.
We'll let the
That is another thing.
the press release is going out.
yeah, we can talk. Well, actually, this month would be the stuff happening this month. We would actually talk about next.
Oh, that's right.
month normally.
That's right.
Right.
So it's good I didn't.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have Rick come here and do it next month.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.